So I'll start with a bow. Take a good posture and give up all hope of any fruition. That's actually, lest that be mistaken for humor, that is a Buddhist slogan in Lojong, mind training. And it's probably humorous from the Buddhist point of view. So, how is everybody? I was not pooping. That is just a rumor, a malevolent rumor started by Cynthia or Micah or Robert. So first, I think, give me one quick word after bow. And remember, the bow is just respect. It's like raising your morale, raising your lungta, raising your heart confidence. Give me one word about how you're feeling about your writing, specifically, how you're feeling about your life, how you're feeling about the academy generally. Doing pretty good qualifies as one word. Better from Cynthia, stuck from Tara. So really think about, just for yourself, the energy of how you're feeling. Whirlwind from Amy, stuck from Anne, curious, good, promising, discombobulated, when's the day, cathartic, nervous, exhausted, going smooth, excited. Confused, happy, stuck. So definitely if you're confused or anything like that, put that in the ask a question, please. And stressed, stuck, energized, bogged down. We are a moody, moody bunch. Gassy. I hear you on that one. All right, so let's all meditate for 1 second. Is anyone up for meditating? Is that cool? I'll lead a moment of Buddhist meditation, a little overwhelmed. Whether you're happy or you're sad, you're good or you're bad, you're confused or you're sane, you're crazy or you're bored, whatever is going on, just bring it right now, all right here, as if you're trying to do the Patronus charm. All right, so bring all your energy right here. Take a good posture. Your eyes are open. You're not trying to close anything out. Please do this. If you're a mentor, if you're staff, if you're on your phone, if you're in a crowded cafe, if whatever your excuse is for not doing it, let's do it anyway. Take a good posture, eyes open. Your eye gaze is about 45 degrees down. Redford, we're meditating. He's napping. Find your breath in and out. Just take a good old breath, but most of your breaths after your good old breath should be normal breaths, not big breaths, nothing profound. It's your normal old breath. So take one good big old breath, which you probably already did. Now all your breaths are just normal. They can be kind of shallow, just normal. So visualize the breath basically as the tide coming in and out on the beach. There's a pause right at the end of the breath, and then it comes back. Pause. And the beach is not meant to make you feel calm. This is just your normal breath. As now think about, feel how you're doing in your life with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your kids, your college, your academy, your writing is going well or not. Think about everything, your fears, your food, you're thinking about lunch, you're thinking about whatever. And get it all there. And then just notice that, feel that, and acknowledge it by saying, thinking quietly to yourself, silently to yourself. And return your attention to your breath. Do that again and again. And return to the breath. Thinking. Return to the breath. The breath will be a little less loud than mine. Now dedicate the merit of what you just did, however minimal, with a bow to yourself and to your own world and to the world, and let it go. Nothing happened. Nothing's better. Give up all hope of fruition. The wonderful thing about giving up all hope of fruition is you let go and you just become present, and then, whoa, fruition is right here. So it's sort of like you're dreaming about donuts, right? Your whole life. Hope is something we buy into. We think about hope is a good thing. Maybe someday I'll have donuts. I want to have donuts. You dream, you fantasize about donuts. Letting go of that hope of fruition is the notion that you have a donut in your hand right now that you could enjoy and be present with. If you just stop fantasizing about donuts. That makes sense? I just came from a donut place, so it's the analogy that came to mind. So the moment of meditation is meant to bring us together, not in blabbing, not in talking, but in being aware of where we're at and acknowledging that and returning to the present moment. The present moment is the font of all good writing. So who here has been writing, whether you're writing a project or writing random stuff, write project or random stuff in the side bar. Project if you're doing a project, random stuff if you're not sure what you're doing, and not writing if you're not writing enough or consistently. Projects, random stuff, both. Project, both. Height, me. Random project, random. Height. I don't know what high means. I mean, I know, but so are you doing projects or random stuff? Maybe I didn't phrase it well. Essays, project, poems, project, 2 projects. Nothing is also okay. Not because it's like kindergarten, we're trying to make everyone happy, but we're just trying to get where we're at. So what have I been doing? I've been doing a project. I've also been doing random stuff. And I'm a little confused about which project I want to do. So today you're going to, just as a sort of thought, a process experiment in terms of how to choose what you want to do, you guys are going to choose what I do. So hopefully this will be helpful for those like Megan Wild who are not totally sure. You have ideas, but you're not quite sure which direction to go. Because at a certain point, you're like, you know, I'm going to go on a vacation. Do I want to go to Europe? Do I want to go to the Caribbean? Do I want to go to Quebec City? Do I want to go to Encinitas, California? Do I want to go on a retreat in the mountains right here to the hot springs? Those are all fine ideas, but at a certain point, you have to like pack your swim trunks and you have to decide which direction you're going, right? And you don't need your swim trunks if you're going to Quebec City, probably. So like that with writing, we have to decide which direction we're going. Portugal, I'll see you there. So, and if we're flying, we have to offset our flights. Okay. So that would be a good Mindful Life challenge for next time. So this is just to say, if you have guilt or writer's block or your, what do you call it? Procrastination. Does anyone here procrastinate ever? Bike trip, Micah UN. Anyone ever procrastinate? That's okay. Guilt tripping yourself and forcing yourself forward is, what does that create? What does that create? What does it create? What does it create? Someone knows. Not a staff person, not a mentor. What does it create? What's another word for resistance or creative constipation? Writer's block, Karen Wenz. Karen Wenz. Writer's block is created out of a tangle, a knot of emotions, which include guilt, pressure, guilt tripping yourself, stress, all those words above, anger, stagnation. Do you get that? So writer's block, as Amanda said, Amanda, you get a gold star, is saying, don't be a jerk to yourself. Who here believes that consent in sexuality is important? Either no one believes in it or there's a delay in comments. Okay. So that should be a low bar question. Easy answer, right? Easy answer. Consent in sexuality is important. Who thinks that consent in sexuality involves your mind and your emotions? Does it? Right? Consent, oh, you're not in the meeting. Consent in sexuality involves your partner or the other person, as well as your own emotions and mind and heart. Who thinks, just to take it away from sexuality, that consent in art, self-consent, is vital? Who thinks that consent in your own art involves your emotions, your mind, your body, your heart? So when you harness consent of body, speech, and mind, right? Speech being expression, body, speech, and mind. When you harness, you synchronize body, speech, and mind in your art, what happens? What does that feel like? What do people describe as their art or their writing? How does it go? There's a universal language about what it feels like when you synchronize or you harness your body, speech, and mind. Flow, I didn't write it. It just flowed through me. I wasn't even responsible. Yes, it was me. Yes, it was my story, but it just flowed through me. That's less about like Odin or God or Shiva or whatever I'm going to postulate here than it is you completely opening up and synchronizing your body, speech, and mind, your intention, your emotions, your art, your decision on what you want to write. But if you're not feeling that flow, will it help to guilt trip yourself, procrastinate, force yourself, all that stuff? Does that help? Consent is 100% important in your art, just as it is in relationships. That said, a good old kick in the ass and community support can be vital to deciding that you're going to harness, you're going to yoke, like in yoga, you're going to union, you're going to unify, you're going to harmonize, you're going to bring together your intention, your art, and your project and begin to flow. So a kick in the ass, a little healthy pressure, but not forcing, and community support can help. And let's talk about healthy pressure. The idea that I have a deadline, that I need my writing piece to be in by the Wednesday meeting, that there's this healthy and supportive community, all these things encourage me to open up. They don't discourage me from expressing myself, hopefully. Okay? And yeah, Marcy, respect to you. Some of us have obstacles with physical pain. Some of us have other life obstacles. My encouragement is if you have a specific obstacle, whether it's your kid or your job or your college or physical obstacle or other, is to write about, begin, Marcy, let go of the project and begin writing about your relationship to that physical pain. Write about the problem. So when you write about the problem, what happens magically? One word, 3 syllables. What's that game? Charades? What's the word? What's that magic word that happens when you write truth about your experience? What happens for you and for the reader? Catharsis. Alchemy. Catharsis is what I was looking for, but it's an alchemy. And I don't mean like turning lead to gold, but you're turning your confusion into wisdom, right? And that's the Buddhist path. That's the whole deal. All right. So whether you're doing a project and everything's hunky-dory, whether you're doing 3 projects and you're a bit confused but feeling good, whether you're not really doing anything but you're writing random stuff, whether you're not writing anything, doesn't totally matter. Take a fresh start today and just revisit your intention, your body, speech, and mind. Stop trying to force yourself. That's a lifelong habit that you don't need. Willpower, bullying, it won't get you there. So now I think we're going to jump in, and remember, you can always ask a question. Now I think it's time to jump into editing. So the first thing we're going to edit, because people wanted more edits. Do you all want more edits? Live editing. So reading is super helpful to become a good writer. Editing is even more helpful in my view, because you're working with, it's like you're working with the clay that is writing. You're working with the material and how to shape it. So I'm going to edit. What am I doing? Waylon edits his own work. Not sure what yet is the note. So what? I'm doing Apprentice after, right?
You can do either.
Yeah. So I think we'll start with mine because it's under number one. And the question at the top is, what writing will Waylon be bringing to edit himself in the meeting? So I wanted to actually discuss that with all of you so that you can see the process of choosing a project. Is that helpful? Does that seem like a good idea? I know there's a delay, but please answer yes, no, or go to hell. How do you choose the project? So here's the options. So my problem is not, I have procrastination because I'm busy and I'm lazy, right? Busyness is laziness. Can someone put that article in? Please open that up and read it if you're procrastinating. It's the most helpful article to read. But I don't have that much procrastination. My problem is more that I have like 4 ideas. Does anyone have too many ideas? And they all seem pretty good to me. They seem fun, I should say. I don't mean good as in like they're great and impressive. I mean, I'm like super into all of them. So how do I choose? So please open up that link and read it later. If you're procrastinating or if you're curious about what I view as the best article on elephant ever. Published 11 years ago, which is a lifetime in new media. So here's my ideas, and you guys get to decide, except if you decide on number 1, you lose. Number 1, the first idea is something brand new, and I think it's super timely. Who here saw Walking Dead? Who here saw Bird Box? Who here saw World War Z? Who here saw Zombie Land? Who here saw, there's so many zombie apocalyptic things going on all the time, right? That is not a coincidence in an age of climate change, of Trump, of nationalism, of fear. There's a lot of fear. I'm not a positivity person. I love acknowledging fear. I love facing the scary stuff. But yeah, Robert, World War Z, the Israel scene, unbelievable, man. Walking Dead, yeah, lots of good moments. So I just watched Bird Box. So why are there all these zombie apocalyptic thrillers? What do you do after watching all that stuff? You get online, you subscribe to Fox News, you get online and you research how to store 8,000 cans of food underground in a hidden lair, bomb-proof lair, and you want to buy rifles and you want to live in the middle of the forest. We all imagine how we could be safe in a world that's gone to total hell after watching these. Am I correct in that postulation? So I'm going to just skip forward because there's a delay. Yes, we are correct. So number 1 is not awful to think about the end of the world. I wish these were all climate change thrillers so we could imagine how to fight. Thriller that actually presents a world kind of like future world, a little more near future than Star Trek, less spaceships and more like, how do we handle racism? How did we handle climate change? How did we handle nationalism? How did we handle all the myriad results of climate change, economic devastation, all this, and actually create a sane, fair society without it becoming fascist or overly regimented? How did we get through all those obstacles? And I want to write a novel about that because I think that would be a positive, constructive visualization that could get people super psyched, kind of like West Wing, but like the zombie version of that, like a hopeful Walking Dead, kind of. So that's number one. The problem with that is it would take a lot of research. So I have decided to shelve that wonderful, timely idea and not do it. So there's my thought process on that one. Sorry to skip to the end of that. So we're not doing it. Number two, my next idea was what I put in last week, which is I'm doing a book full of sort of Buddhist advice for everyday life, because this world needs sane, grounded, mindful advice for how to be mindful and helpful in the world. Was the first example, going back to the utopian kind of novel, was that helpful to see my thought process that, like, okay, it's fun, it's a good idea, but it's too much to bite off given where I'm at in my life right now? Is that helpful? I know it kind of went quiet. Number two, the quote book. So I'm 90% done with it. So really it would be a question of sharing the edits with all of you guys and getting feedback. And it would be super helpful to continue with that. And then I'm basically ready to go to print. So that felt like a good fit for this course. But I put in the first chapter, and I have to say, overall, my feeling was like, I kind of got it. Like, I'm kind of there. I don't totally need that much help with it. I need a kick in the butt to actually finish it. So you guys could be helpful there. But basically, I felt like I would be underutilizing the amazing helpfulness that could be this community in terms of editing. So quote book. So I haven't said no to it, but I feel like it's almost like two done. All right. And the quote book is, so just to talk about it a little more, it's 365 quotes. So one every single morning. You can flip it over and read one. And on the back, there's commentary that could be 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, 4, more in depth. And it would go over environmental stuff, it would go over bicycling, it would go over how to deal with family at Thanksgiving, it would go over meditation, it would go over life advice, broken heart. It would be the whole gamut of just like the mindful life in a book. So my thought process on that is, okay, that one feels like a doable, but almost like too doable. Like I have a handle on it, as Alyssa said. I don't think I don't need help with it, but what I really need there is an editor like Lindsay or Vanessa or someone, and then I'm good, right? That's all I need. So my thought process is sort of like Goldilocks. First one's too hard, second one's too easy. Okay, let's look at a third idea. Third idea is something that I wrote 5 years ago. And remember, I don't matter. So none of this is about me. So who cares about me? I'm just going over the thought process for how all of you can pick your idea. And to answer who cares about me, very rude. My mom cares about me a lot. So third idea is Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl. It's a fun novel. I re-edited one of the first chapters the other day to see if I was still inspired by it. Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl is sort of Portlandia. I wrote it before Portlandia existed. It's making fun of this whole spiritual, ethical, blah, blah, blah world, Instagramized, kind of shallow world of relationships. And I think it would be super fun. I think you guys would enjoy it so much. It would be so fun. And it would really help me unearth it. So I'm kind of like feeling pretty good about it. But then I had a fourth idea. So really our decision is going to be between 2, 3, and 4. Your decision. You're going to decide what I do for the rest of this course. And when I do it, I'm going to be all guns blazing. I'm going to be in the flow. I'm going to be writing. I'm going to be editing, blah, blah, blah. So the fourth idea. So did anyone read my article about how my house is messy and I like it? I don't like super clean modernism. Did anyone read that article? No. I've done. So the first idea is the non-apocalyptic future utopia. The second idea is the quote book. The third idea is Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl. And the fourth idea is titled FUCK Modernism. Minimalism sucks. So that's the fourth idea. And that book, because I was pleasantly surprised that that was a hit, because it's just an article about like my living room, basically, or like Craigslist. Like, it's not very sexy. I thought, well, a lot of people are feeling this. And this is what the power of serialization. You put up something, people feel it, they react, they get into it. It's like they own it, not you. And then the rest of the book, here's where it gets really genius in my mind, is not just about F modernism. It's about so I do house tours of my house all the time when people come over, because every single inch of my house I've renovated in a historically appropriate way, or in a creative, nutty way, or in a super cheap, reused, upcycled way. I mean, it's a pretty wild house. And people are always like, oh, you should do a book on it. And I'm always like, yeah, that's sure, someday, maybe when I'm like old. I don't have time for that. No one cares, really. People care, but whatever. I'm not an expert. But anyway, so the whole rest of the book would be about all the projects I've done, how to save money, how to do it cheaply, I like coach people on how to buy cheap furniture when they move to Boulder all the time. That's antique, that's off Craigslist, that gets delivered to your house for free, that is better made than anything at IKEA, that does an off gas, unlike everything at IKEA. Did you know formaldehyde is in all couches? It's poisonous, pretty much all couches, all mattresses. Even baby stuff. It's insane. So anyway, just sort of how to eco-fy your whole, and just the basic knowledge and fun photos around that. I think it would be very fun visually. So that's the fourth idea. So I'm leaning toward Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl, or the F modernism. But the quote book would be an easy slam dunk. And since we're like halfway through the program, the quote book could be good. So this isn't exactly a vote, but I want to hear what people think, if you don't mind. Because in saying what you think and why you think it, that will help you decide for yourself. And if you've already decided, it'll help you relook at that decision and feel even more flowy about it, if it's a good decision. So I like both ideas. Quote book, also, you are practically a walking quote book anyway. I love that. Can we please keep that as a quote for the book? Is Eco Boy, not Ego Boy, but I like that. I like the play on words. Eco-fy my life, quote book, finish the quote book, Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl. But say why, say why, say why. Because voting doesn't matter. That's just an opinion. Why, the process of deciding why is what matters. Eco-fy my life, quote book, Eco Boy. I want to read it. Yeah, it's pretty sexy and funny and empathetic at the same time. The last idea you were excited by, it would help me figure out my life, environmental and my design. Eco Boy, energy around the modernism. Yeah, well, it's new, so you have to be suspicious of your own enthusiasm. Maybe that's the wrong way to put it. You have to contextualize your enthusiasm for anything new and realize that, like the quote book, maybe it's less sexy because it's mostly done, but it's totally doable. And isn't it nice to just get something off your plate that could hopefully be a benefit, is our main ambition. Do more work on the quote book, but float more of the ideas on the F modernism. New and fun and will challenge you in a new way. But it's a major disease among us artisty types that we always like the new idea and we forget about the old idea and we never complete things. So just good to think about. Finish the quote book since you're almost done. Finishing would propel you, your name, who you are, what you represent, and attract more readers. Quote book, is most that are out there are a bit lame. I like how grounded the eco design feels. It seems more universally useful than the novel, and the quote book sounds done, so nice try, but no. I like that logic, justice. Okay, I know you've ruled out number one, but honestly, it feels the most interesting to me and sounds like you're ruling it out for a reasonable reason, but it feels so powerful, needed. Deborah, thank you. Yeah, I think it is powerful, needed, but I think this is why it's hard, right? Finish the quote book since you're almost F modernism is cool to go with since you would have the community fire to get it up and burning. The other needs your fire. It's past the need for community fire. Amanda, very perceptive, very cool. So if you have different leverage points, this is for you and your decision. Where can you use that community support, that editing support, that kick in the butt in terms of deadlines? Number 3 is the Eco Boy, Lisa, sexy and funny and pathetic. Yeah, I meant empathetic, but it's also pathetic. It's making fun of both of them in a sort of vicious but also tender way. F minimalism, would read that book too. There's a lot to be said. So, sorry, there's so many good comments. It's hard to get through this. There's a lot to be said for finishing quote book. So, yeah, so maybe you just say, okay, I'm definitely going to finish the quote book, and I'm going to either leverage the community for my Eco Boy since I need feedback on that more, or for the F minimalism one. Alistair, yeah, good logic. I want to live simply and friendly and sustainably and healthy, and I'm noticing that basically everything we do and buy is a sin to our home planet and body, unless it's reused and totally upcycled and not transported or offset for sure. Or you're supporting a company like this couch is latex and organic, but some of that can be expensive, so reused stuff is really good. Finishing is difficult because then it's done, so final K, amen. Get the easiest one off your plate, logic, Donna. I'm intrigued by Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl. You've referenced it a few times throughout the series and I'd like to hear more. All right, so I'm going to make a decision right now. That's how crazy this is. So I think the F modernism one is super cool, and I would do lots of photos and I would do lots of commentary about the projects. Online, I could do videos because we've done some videos. I feel like it's pretty doable. So it seems pretty good. The Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl, I think it needs a lot of love. I just recently re-edited the first chapter just to sort of feel it out since I started it like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. So I need a lot of help with that. I feel like you guys should be super helpful on that. So I think I'm going to go with Eco Boy because it needs the most help from you guys. F minimalism, I feel like will need a lot of help too, but obviously I haven't even started it other than the first chapter. And I do like that it's timely, so it gives me some hesitation because it's got the fire behind it. It feels like I could serialize it and people would be excited to buy it. The quote book, I love to death, but I do think I can accomplish that on my own with a great editor. So if you all have an editor in your life, or you hire one, or you have a friend, and you're pretty far along, that can be enough. So I think we're going to do Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl because I guess among the 4 topics, it feels the most vulnerable. It feels the most embarrassing. It feels the most fun. It feels like the most fun. And it feels like it needs the most help from you guys. So that's my thought process. And how are we for time? So now, number 1, I'm going to edit my own work in front of you guys. So I'm going to grab Eco Boy and then we're going to edit it together. If I can find it. Yeah, I don't even know. Emily, you want to come on for 1 minute while I find it? Is that possible? If it's not possible, I can probably find it.
Hello.
Hey, can you discuss any of the writing lessons like the Strunk and White or something?
Sure.
Thank you. No pressure.
Hi, everybody. Okay, let me just pull up what I need here. Right, okay, so one of the things we wanted to talk about today is kind of, I think when you're editing, when you're starting to edit especially, I know that I was like this when I started working with Elephant. Like I wanted everything to be perfect, and by perfect I mean like follow every rule to a T. Oh my god, thank you, Laura. So I think that we can kind of get caught up in that when we're editing and wanting to make everything, exactly right, and we turn into what is like an unfortunately popular name, but like the whole grammar Nazi thing where you're like more concerned about an Oxford comma than you are about whether or not something is connecting. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is like learning the rules and knowing the rules and breaking the rules kind of all at the same time. So there's a quote from Strunk and White's Elements of Style, which we have on all of your reading lists, which I hope that you have purchased. I have mine with me like 99% of the time. I don't right now because I'm not at my house, but this is a quote from Strunk and White. It is an old observation that the best writers sometimes disregard the rules of rhetoric. When they do so, however, the reader will usually find in the sentence some compensating merit attained at the cost of the violation. Unless he is certain of doing as well, he will probably do best to follow the rules. After he has learned by their guidance to write plain English adequate for everyday users, let him look for the secrets of style to the study of the masters of literature. So what I take from that quote is basically you do kind of have to start being a little bit uptight, knowing how the rules work, knowing what kind of constitutes a strong sentence versus a weak sentence, active and passive, and how to use a comma and how to use apostrophes and getting those little things right. And once you've done that is when you get to like really have fun and throw all those rules aside and be like, okay, those are the rules, but I can actually make the sentence quite a bit more interesting by not following these rules. And that's kind of what makes different writers great in their own right. I know we've used this comparison before, but the contrast between a writer like Jack Kerouac and Ernest Hemingway is huge, but they're both these like prolific writers who have kind of shaped their respective genres of writing. And they both do it very differently, and they both break totally different rules, but they both break them well. And that is not in small part to their editors either. So as an editor, when you know all the rules, you can look at somebody's writing and say, okay, this is what this person's doing. I don't need to change it to make it like this person. I can kind of see what they're trying to do here, how they're trying to make their writing sound, what their voice is, and I can edit that accordingly rather than kind of making everything this like cookie cutter, perfect grammatical piece. Do you have anything to add to that, Waylon?
No, I think you said it well. I think there's a facile kind of disrespect that we can fall into when we don't know what the hell we're doing, where we're like, I'm going to do something new and brilliant. And it's much better to read and edit and learn and try on different snake skins of different writers and different voices and shed those snake skins and until you're kind of a master. Like Kerouac, which people don't realize, wrote traditionally for a long time, and he read everyone. Rimbaud, he read everyone. So at that point, then you can let go. Like Picasso, was excellent at actually painting realistically. So there's a freedom, and you can mess with stuff once you're a master of it. It's sort of like surfing. You can do funny, cool tricks or skateboarding, but you don't want to do that on the first day. On the first day, you want to get stability. You want to get relaxation. You want to not break your knees, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and one thing, just because I just posted this morning, actually, on Elephant Academy's Instagram account, that I think is worth mentioning in terms of being like a master of something, is that doesn't necessarily mean, it certainly doesn't necessarily mean, you have to be, have to have a certain degree or anything like that. So Ray Bradbury didn't ever go to college, and he said that after high school, I didn't graduate college, so instead I went to the library 3 times a week for 10 years. So this is the kind of thing that, it's not like music or art or something like that does have a lot of those really technical aspects. I mean, writing does, but I think this is a great example of a type of art that you can teach yourself how to do properly and teach yourself how to break the rules. So don't feel like that expertise is something unattainable, because it's definitely attainable no matter where you are in your writing career. Yes, Molly put the link in for me. So if you haven't followed Elephant Academy on Instagram, do, because we often feature things that you guys post. So you might see yourself on our Instagram. And that's a little bit of an incentive to write for you if you haven't yet. Are you still searching, Waylon?
No, I found it. I can't remember my password, so I can't do it in Chrome, but I can do it in Firefox. Because somehow I'm signed in on Firefox.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Cool.
You can stick around if you want to like edit stuff, or not.
I think it might make it too small if we have all the feeds up.
Cool. All right.
So,
thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. Bye, guys.
Okay, so that's the first lesson of like getting a new project started is, for any of who here is an expert in procrastination, for any of us who are an expert in procrastination, a key part of our arrow in our quiver is not knowing where to find the stuff, not knowing the password, not knowing where we wrote stuff and stuck it in a drawer. Oh, it's in a box somewhere, not having it organized, is not feeling like you have ready access to it. Underline that. So find it, bookmark it, identify it, get it organized. If you can't get it organized on your own, admit that to yourself right away and find an editor who's a friend, who is someone you hire, doesn't matter. We have a lot of advice for how to find an editor in our book course, Indie Book. But, I'm not going to go into depth on that here, but I would definitely advise starting with friends who care a little bit. And if none of your friends care a little bit, I would work on finding a book writing group, and you'd be surprised how many there are. And then similar to the Academy, I mean, obviously in the Academy, you can use any of us. We're all here for you. But outside in your life, post-Academy, you can continue to use Academy friends or anyone in one of our writing groups, or, find it locally. Okay, so we ready to hack apart my thing? So let me screenshot. Is everyone doing okay? I'm not going to see your comments from here on out, so maybe, I don't know what to do. Share screen. Okay. So here's EcoBoy. This is super organized by every chapter and every whatever, by Lindsay. I don't think I did any of this. So that's the virtue of working with an organized person. So first of all, she identified all the links, because I was serializing this before, had tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of readers. And if I were to serialize it starting now, every one of these would link to how to buy the book when it was done. So the title is basically EcoBoy versus Yoga Girl. Maybe it's the continuing adventures of EcoBoy versus Yoga Girl. Who knows? And remember, who cares? Because the title will happen at the end. If the title is perfect, EcoBoy versus Yoga Girl, which I think it is, that will feel like the right title at the end. If it's not perfect, I'll adjust it slightly at the end, because it's like the bow, the red ribbon on the present, right? So here's all the chapters. So the Perfect Hipster, I think, was the first one. So I'm going to click that. And we'll come back to that in a second. Oh, no. Well, this will allow you to see it, but the images aren't there. This will allow you to see it how it originally appeared, but it's kind of boring because the images aren't there. Okay, so here's all the chapters, some of which are probably awesome, some of which are embarrassing, some of which are half of one, half of the other. You can see there's a lot of chapters here. I think I wrote the whole thing. Yeah, right up to the end. Then I did something which I recommend all of you do. Find images that connect with the book. So here's Godzilla, the actor walking around with some lady. That's kind of a great sketch for a cover. Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl is titled Versus because I was inspired by the kind of old covers where Godzilla is attacking whoever that is, Mothra or one of them. That's not Mothra. Oh, Megalon. These kind of like funny, pulpy covers that show like the whole world is being decided by your love affair, which is how it feels when you're in love, right? So with, helicopters and people shooting, but the final title would probably, the final cover would probably be two lovers kind of, wrestling over cappuccinos or whatever. So here's some like little images. Obviously I don't have rights to these. They're not going to be in the book, but just sort of the visualization, like the one dude is a ridiculous hipster, much like myself. Hipster as defined 10 years ago. It's changed now to like these mall brats, but and the lady is like kind of perfect and privileged and, drives her Lexus to go do yoga and, doesn't give a shit about the environment. This guy is the opposite, but he's kind of dark and cynical and full of himself. So anyway, a couple images. Here's another kind of cover. I don't even know what that is. Maybe an old image of Boulder. So that's basically the layout. I put in all the serialized chapters. Every serialized chapter links to the Kickstarter or however you're selling the book. And it's pretty well organized. Do people get that part? You're driving. Don't be careful. Okay. Any questions on that before I proceed? Ask a question. I feel as if when we have projects, small writings come from the bigger projects, creating articles. Have projects been spawned from all of these writing project choices? Have articles been spawned? That's interesting. So you mean like little articles based on big project ideas? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Did I write Eco Boy versus Yoga Girl in Word or Scrivener or what? I wrote it in WordPress on Elephant straight up. I don't know if articles have been inspired. If you look at things I would like to do with you, which I serialized on Elephant, and inspired lots of writers. So lots of people wrote their own sort of things. And obviously all of them helped my book in the sense that they were just more attention kind of attributed to my book, but maybe they didn't really help, but it was, it's flattering. All right. Shall I go back to the thing? I thought there might be a couple more questions. Any other questions on how to organize the project before I proceed? Cool idea to help capture the feel. Cool to see your chapters with images way. That's from Molly, I assume. Or yeah. Any questions before I proceed? If not, that's okay. What if it's not clear how you're selling the book? I have a great question, Deborah. I have already had people want to buy the book. I am self-publishing, but it's not set up yet. What I would do is I would set up a pre-order link. I would set up a hypothetical cover. I would call up your local printer or talk with me or other people, try to figure out what how much the book is going to cost in your mind, and then charge, 3 times that or 4 times that. So if the book is going to cost like $7, you're printing it eco, you're printing it local, which I hope you do, plastic free. Again, our indie book course has tons of advice on how to print it. Find a price, whether it's $15, $10, $30, whatever, and then set up a pre-order link on your website. I love Kickstarter because you can help people can kind of Kickstarter, get their book. I did not do the organizing. I actually said that, Marcy. Lindsay did all of it. So that's where if you're organized, that part won't be no problem, and it'll be fun and satisfying for you. And if you're not organized, like myself, you probably need someone to help. Google Sheet. I think Google Docs are fine. For me, I personally just blogged it all up on Elephant and linked one to the other. So I wouldn't even use Google Docs, probably, frankly. I would just use Elephant or my own website if I had my own website separate from Elephant, if I were you. Okay, I'm going to go back. Are people supportive of my going back and actually tearing apart one of the chapters? I'm not going to be able to see your comments, though. Why is that so irritating? Okay. Just is what it is. Okay. Here we go. So chapter 1. So this is what I wrote back in the day. I'm like, I'm going to write it in one weekend. And I wrote a bunch. So that was cool. So I first wrote something kind of friendly, which I think all of you guys could do. I'm going to depict the Buddhist, green, eco, and yoga communities I've grown up in and worked in my whole life and make fun of us. I have a handle on this stuff. I know it pretty well. Hippie, hipster, ride your bike, drink fair trade coffee, garden, buy local, support independent if you're passionate politically as an activist. And then what are my weak points on that? Yoga girl. I'm not a woman, but I've known many women intimately and just as friends. She'll be affluent, pseudo spiritual, conservative, yet strongly. One of my delighted things about yoga is that like half the community is quite conservative. So I kind of delight in that, bringing that together with the eco boy. Flies around doing teacher trainings without ever intending to serve as a yoga teacher. She won't be political. It'll be like kind of Hanuman or Wanderlust or yoga journal festivals. All right. So there are some notes about basically what I wanted to do. And then the first chapter is titled The Perfect Hipster. It's the introduction, and perfect meaning kind of uptight, trying to do everything exactly right. So there you go. And I think I was thinking 108 pages plus illustrations, whatever. But who knows? Then I have a disclaimer. No one here is anyone. The chapters and stories are all bull, except for the parts that are clearly about me. So just sort of like, the Mark Twain intros, a little bit of humor, a little bit of disclaimer. Oh, I guess number 1 is titled Insufferable. Maybe it's perfect. Who knows? So again, I wish I could see your comments. This is so irritating, but maybe I can. Can I? Oh, they're right there. Oh, my child. All right. So guys, please comment because you can help me edit this basically. So about the title, The Perfect Hipster, The Insufferable Hipster, they're very different. Perfect is a little bit more subtle. It's making fun of the notion of perfection, but maybe it's serious. You don't really know. Insufferable is clearly critical. Do we care about a title before we've edited it? No, we don't. So basically all of this is in the sort of Kerouac vein, not style-wise, but in terms of being autobiographical fiction. In terms of like everything is almost like recognizably my life and bolder. All right. But then you can go back and do a final re-edit when you're totally done and throw some wrenches in the works, right? Make things different. Have a little bit of an ocean. Have it be whatever. You can mess with stuff. Okay. So, but my number 1 point about the title is you can look at it, you can think about it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're going to come back to it. It is the ribbon on your present. So it's okay to have views like Jennifer Carroll, Micah, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Get past the title. Titles are easy. Stop procrastinating. Jump right in. Introducing Eco Boy at Imperial Books, Denton, Colorado. Then it has like a kind of positioning quote. Begin with an individual, and before you know it, you find that you have created a type. Begin with a type, and you find that you have created nothing. I'm not editing, I'm just putting an dash in. That is because we are all queer fish, queer behind our faces and voices, and we want anyone to know, or then we can know ourselves. So this to me would be more of a quote for like the introduction, because basically it's justifying the notion of talking about these two types as superficial types, eco boy, yoga girl. Notice they're not even being identified by their names, at least in the title. And now we start. Eco boy was poor, but lived a rich life in a good house in a good town. His name was, I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle that. Either leave a blank space, never name him or her in the entire book. I think that could be kind of a fun challenge. Kind of like Big, Mr. Big was never named in Sex in the City until maybe at the very, 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 very end. I'm not sure. Or in the movie or something. Okay. His name was, he bicycled. He didn't own a car and ate simply, as long as it was local, organic, plastic-free, vegan, and wanted to change the world for the better and judge people along the way. So clearly, for the first moment, is both saying he's like kind of a perfectionist, like it's kind of making fun of the notion that it's simple because there's a whole laundry list. And then he just wanted to change the world for the better and judge people along the way. That is clearly making fun of him, but also kind of true and also kind of a little bit vicious. So it's that kind of humor where it's like funny, but it's a little uncomfortable. And if you can ride that razor's edge, that's going to be my goal, is not to be ha-ha funny and not to be dark, brutal, negative, but to be this sort of satire, kind of like Portlandia was. All right. He didn't like himself or the world or people much. He did love long hikes in the sky and food and plants and farms and animals. It was 8 a.m. So notice how general this is. Then boom, it jumps, hopefully, I'm hoping, into some specifics. It was 8 a.m. He'd gone to bed at 2 a.m. Red, his 4-year-old, I think I'm just changing it to like literally like my dog. Because originally it was Blue in the first draft, and I can't do Blue the whole time. Red, his 4-year-old boy half-hound, was pawing at him, half standing on his mattress on the floor. He liked sleeping on the mattress on the ground. It was steady with no frame to creak and sigh and protest at every girl he brought home. So notice how specific it's getting. It's talking about why you would want to sleep on a mattress on the floor. So that is a good sign, because do we like the word specific? I mean, do we like the specific writing? Readers need it. Readers don't want just types, right? They don't want just generalities. They want specifics. And then notice it's talking about, quite openly, talking about having sex, sexuality. So number one, that's enticing for people who like to read about sex or who like sex or horn dogs, you horny people. And number two, it might be a little offensive, but because we've already made fun of him once, maybe we're not sure. Are we him? Do we like him? Do we dislike him? I'm really not sure at this point. He was handsome, 34, but he wasn't a player. He didn't have game, as his yoga teacher noted. He was charming or he wasn't. He didn't really have control over it. Generally, he was most charming when he was most himself, which was when he was most firmly ensconced in community, in the warm hug of trust that comes with it. And so now I'm confused, because this sounds like he's quite human. So, okay, he's human. We don't like him. We do like him. Now I'm starting to think, oh, he's just like a human being. Like, you like yourself. There's parts of you don't like. You make fun of yourself. We're all just complicated human beings. And so now it's just starting to feel realistic, like he's less of a type and more of a human. In the warm hug of trust that comes with it, so if he's a human, or she, once we get to chapter 2, which is about Yoga Girl, then we can start doing what? Caring about them. So we're not just going to make fun of them, we're going to start caring about them. And I think that's a powerful combination if we both care and enjoy. He wasn't for one-liners at a bar. He wasn't one for one-liners at a bar, unless he was sometimes when he was feeling full of himself. So it's very contradictory. He was alone now, had been for a month. He liked loneliness. A cold, old, vintage white wool blanket with yellow and green and red stripes, $85 off Craigslist, blanket that he drew about himself. So that's kind of reminding me of that scene in Fight Club where it like goes through his apartment and everything's itemized. Loneliness confirmed his specialness, his separateness. So again, it's starting to make fun of his loneliness in that it's basically egotistical. He thinks he's very special. It was a blue cold, but not cold. So far I haven't seen anything I hated. I want to change. I'm just reading it I'm not really reading it as a reader, am I, right now? I'm reading it more as like a judge, as an editor. It was a blue, cool, but not cold winter morning. He hadn't showered and his hair was sticking up as if on fire. His hair was cut short on the sides and back as if he were a military boy. His eyes were blurry and he rubbed them, stretched, sighed, burped, yelled, "Good morning, sunshine." That should probably be italicized. To himself and greeted, and that should be lowercase, to himself and greeted Red with a few minutes of pets behind the ears and along the happy dog's spine and tush. He sat up and looked himself on the floor mirror and wangled his tight neck and blinked his. Words like this are kind of charming to me because they're just kind of, they're not pretentious. They're just sort of how you think about your body. Oh, I'm going to stretch. I'm going to do blah. And blinked his bleary eyes and sat down and tried to meditate, bowing first and dedicated his breath to the world. His dog was standing by the bed, wagging his tail, hungry and impatient. If there's a note, I want to come back to it later. I put in 3 X's. Then you can do Control Find, XXX. Easy, easy, easy. You can see I have 5 X's in here. So now I have to get back. I don't know where I am. Hungry and impatient and sleepy with stuff in his eyes too, ready to get going. So the XXX thing can be good if you're trying to read it first as a reader and then come back to it. Let's see. So good comments. Offensive keeps attention. Most firmly ensconced in community feels rather big and kind of a cliche. So remember, cliches are fine if you then tent peg them down into the earth. So there has to be a scene, and you're totally correct, where he is in dialogue. We need some dialogue anyway. Goes to the farmer's market, sees people at a cafe, has a donut, whatever, some kind of community. So I agree, Deborah. Beautiful. Does that tent peg have to happen right in the first chapter, or does it happen later? That's up to you as the writer, right? You broke the first rule. Which rule? I don't know. Seems dissonant with line about being happy and hugged by community, part being lonely. Yeah, there's a lot of dissonance in here. I do think a lot of us are lonely and also love community. Who knows? Human beings are dissonant. Okay. Licking, stuff was ready to get going. So the dog's ready to get going. Licking his lips in anticipation. Coffee ground in a Zolzenhaus wood grinder. So that's specific enough that nobody knows what it is. So half of us are going to Google it. If it's serialized, I would probably link to it. Specifics are amazing because if someone Googles this and says, oh, Zolzenhaus, maybe this is the best coffee grinder in the whole world, I'm going to get one, they're going to remember that detail. Details are so powerful as long as it's not so many that you get bogged down. So to Deborah's point about cliche and my point about tent pegs, you want a rhythm of sort of presenting cliche, like he likes community, and then a scene of farmer's market. Or whatever. Because you, as Deborah pointed out, you want to be able to visualize what that means. Wood grinder bought because there wasn't much plastic in it, and it was a good old company that supported real jobs. It's only 5 minutes away. I don't totally get that, so that would be another point. I think I mean the coffee was 5 minutes away from being ready. Bowing again, he rose and went to the bathroom and showered with a shower bar. No plastic, yeah, and looked at his naked self in the mirror. He was pale. So there's some colloquial stuff going on. Colloquial meaning this is kind of how he's talking to himself, maybe. Zolzenhaus is awesome. You can also get used ones on eBay and stuff. They're much cheaper. I would. So that quote about cliches are okay if you then tent peg them down into the earth. That's pretty good. It's also like cliches can present something that you then tent peg down. So it's sort of like saying, if I'm talking to Vanessa, you can ignore me. I say, hey, do you want to go get lunch? And she says yes or no. And then if she says yes, then I say, do you want to go with me? And she says yes or no. She has her plans or she doesn't. And then if she wants to go with me, I say, are you up for working during lunch or do you want to just chill? She says yes or no. If that sounds good to me, then we decide where to go, which is specific. So we start, do you want to go to lunch? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And then if all that fits, then you say, okay, this is where we're going to go, which is the tent peg, the detail. He was strong, but it's dangerous to have too much cliche because the notion of saying, I am going to write about this in the following pages, you can always cut that. You don't need that kind of introduction. His hair was flat now over his head. He was strong from climbing and cycling. He put on a towel and another around his head and shoulders and played Nerf basketball in the adjoining hall, air drying. That is how I air dry every single morning. He pulled on an old Japanese blue patch robe and cinched it. I need the name for that because we need him to be super pretentious. I basically want to take myself and amp up anything that could be funny, amp up anything that could be pretentious, have it be half helpful and half silly, and make him even more kind of lonely and even more egotistical and even more lovery. Like basically just take me and amp it up to 11. Ah, oh, I only have 5 minutes. Oh my God. Well, so you can see editing takes. So I'll just stop right there. Maybe I'll read one more thing. He loved the earth, and understandably, perhaps, he was an activist and a writer and deeply self-concerned and occasionally depressed. He loved the earth and, understandably, perhaps, wasn't so sure about people. He was an old boy. His house was 2 stories, 4 if you include the basement, and opened up short attic, and old. He had grown up poor and still had never really traveled or spent much money on big things other than his house. He was a homeboy. Decent, he and Red puttered down the stairs to the mudroom and, pulling on some unseasonably big boots, took the happy dog out to the park behind his house. Red walked about sky girls and sex and word and work and food and exercise and about nothing too. He just saw the sky and the fall leaves falling in the cool sky. So again, he's a little bit empathetic here. So I'm confused about his character. Is he empathetic? Is he a jerk? Probably both. Then they went back to the house, a boring, happy domestic pair. That's kind of cute. The dog scampered his way after him and into the mudroom, ready for breakfast. Lie down! Down! But the dog was down before he said anything. Breakfast, raw, healthy meat, and veggie stuff was served. Years later, Red would go vegan, which dogs can do healthfully. So again, it's almost like informational. So that's half the point, is to kind of convey stuff while making fun of it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the dog jumped on the stainless steel food bowl with a bump in the middle. So it's middle of it. So anyway. I've failed you guys yet again. I can edit for, well, no, we have 2 minutes. So, yeah, did he scoop? I love that. So I'm happy to edit live your guys' stuff. We actually have 3 articles picked out, but I failed again. It's hard here. You have to understand, and I know you do, because half of us are on lunch meeting or whatever and have to go, and an hour and 15 minutes is already inconvenient. Yeah, the cool thing, Donna, about that is I can link to vegan dog diet, blah, 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 healthy stuff. So the whole serialization can become this amazing resource, sort of a shortcut for how to be like eco for those who care about that stuff. And even if you think you don't care about it, you're going to care about 1 or 2 things, like the Zaws and Haas if you're into coffee. Don't need to be eco to be into good coffee. So, and then link everything. That's the serialization thing. Is you're basically PRing every chapter, public relations, marketing. You're marketing every chapter. You're linking to the pre-order link, and then you're making money. And then you got to publish it. It's on you. You have to publish it. Yeah, I use VDOG. Yeah, exactly. Look at you, man. Compostable bags, but I mix it up with rice and lentils and all that. So I can link to that. All right, folks. I think that's it. Any final question? We have 1 minute. Yeah, Tara, you can totally listen later. And I will put this full chapter into Parade, and you guys can savage it. But what you did help me, we're not bowing yet. What you did help me, oh, you're bowing in. Oh, ask a question. What you did help me do is decide. Waylon, what I meant was from Kay. As you have these projects, do you find that smaller pieces, articles you write are inspired from your bigger projects? Yeah, I think I understood that's what you meant. Do you start writing offshoots of specific things from the bigger project? I haven't, that I can think of, done that. But it sounds like you might be. So, you know, you write your project, you have all these like ancillary little inspirations follow up. I think that's super cool. Okay, so if you're asking if you can do that or should do that, I think that's a very healthy sign. It's sort of like you're planting a tree and then all this other stuff just grows around it. That's awesome. So these chapters went up on Elephant as part of your series. How often did you post them? I think I posted them. I mean, you can look at the dates, or I can, but just whenever I was done. Again, I would write when you're fired up and inspired, and use the community to push you. So I will see you guys on Parade. Okay, it's totally okay. And thank you so much. So let's bow. And mentors, we are going to meet after, so please come. Mentor, everyone's happy and inspired. If you can't attend, that's fine. But if you can, please do. Thank you, folks. Sorry it feels so short, but again, we can't make it go longer.